why it is important to know the history of all this like old media technologies, and how the knowing of this functioning and ruptures between these different types of media and media technological developments and technomythologies can be used to prevent something that that is already happening to be even worse. And yeah, so I wanted to start with this short video piece. It's like 2-minute piece called Short Glimpse Through the Curtain. And then I will start with the talk. 1 second, I need to share the screen. This piece was created for the Asha Electronica Festival a couple of during the pandemic, and what is happening here, it's basically what you hear, it's the same what you see. So the sound that we can hear is actually the demodulated video signal, and the piece is fully analog, so it was just captured by digital means, but the technology behind it is very old and created like made like basically during the Soviet times. And the main difference between like modern, let's say, audiovisual projects, digital media, that in digital media these connections are between audio and like visual data are kind of arbitrary, can be reprogrammed. But this, like in an analog world, this kind of programming between different media is already something that embedded in technology itself. So the then studying this technology and studying these connections, which are not kind of meant to be there, allows us to kind of trace a bit all this kind of social, cultural, and economical climate, which was there, when this technology was created, a bit like circles in the trees and tree trunks, and basically in a way to this kind of usage of this technology is in not kind of proper designed way, allows us to unwrap a bit this kind of message of the medium in this kind of McLuhan-esque concept of the medium as a message and every medium as a like container for the old media. And then so I'm starting my presentation now. And hope you can be able to see it. And so the topic of this keynote today is ice have ears, and analog synesthesia and early machine vision hearing system and artistic research. And so the piece I showed you was recorded using this instrument called VideoVox, which essentially was built, which was built by me, combining these different pieces of old, like obsolete, not really obsolete, but like omnipresent pieces of Soviet technology. Because in post-Soviet kind of countries, there is this very so these pieces of technology are still very prominent. There are a lot of kind of things you can find around like the which were produced in 70s and never been used, for example, or like also produced and created, but like the in very specific ways, which are not which is kind of completely different from what we are used to when we interact with the modern technology and the market. And yeah, sorry, the wrong caption here, but the idea behind this work that basically in the analog world we always encounter with the waveforms. So analog video frame is also a waveform which is which transmitted by cables usually, or like wirelessly, and then allow us to draw line by line the picture that we can see on the screen. And there is a very specific type of technology which is you still can find, I think, only in post-Soviet countries and maybe North Korea. It's a wired radio station, wired radio points. So it's a omnipresent wired radio network, which is like installed like in every home and every public place. That uses also very specific protocols of communication in a way like that, like in terms of range and frequencies, it's very similar to the analog video. So that's why it's also this kind of networks kind of interchange each other in this piece, but this is actually kind of an instrument which you can play just modifying the content of video frame and hear this sound of the video. But then, like when I was developed, so it was just a kind of random found, and when I discovered this connection, then I decided to dig deeper, like in the history of this media, why it was actually developed and used, and why it's like so localized. And then so that's something that I will tell today. So yeah, that was a bit of spoiler on the last slide. So the everything, so in Soviet, in post-Soviet countries, all this technology developed in very specific, like economical and socio-political climate, let's say, and then we will talk on about these technologies and media technologies and the technological arts and interconnection between this art and technology during the Soviet era, and the how the government and special policing force used this to like seize more power and like control and get more control over the population, and how these methods were transferred then to this kind of modern technology. But then everything starts kind of this story, which I will tell you, starts here. It's a very specific place called Synaesthesia radio station, which was built in Russian Empire in 1914, especially to communicate with the Western countries, like with Entente, with allies during the World War I. So it's one of the first kind of powerful transmitters. So, and then it's already so also kind of as it's usually happens with a lot of different technology. It has military use, but then in the Russian Empire, actually, it was not the main usage of the technology, because there were already different type of transmitters, like telephone lines and transmission system, for example, from the theaters to hear the performances and concerts, for example, in the palace of Empire family, and then. But then this very specific place is very important, because this like transition between old world of Russian Empire and new Soviet reality was met here. Like there's several people were gathered in this place who played like very big role in all this media development in the future, and they met this transition in this place. And yeah, so the story of the revolution, it's quite complicated, but then so the second revolution of 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution, was also it's important to say that this kind of declaration of the Bolshevik victory, of Bolshevik coup, was also made in this radio station. So it's like a first transmission abroad where Bolsheviks stated that they seized the power. And two persons were working there, Alexander Shorin and Leon Teremin, who actually are pioneers of all the media and sound and media art of in the world, let's say. And they were people who actually accepted this ideals of the Russian of this Bolshevik Revolution, and started to work with the new government. Like they were hired by as radio specialists by Empire, but then continue to work with the new Soviet government, developing their own kind of strategies to deal with this. And the basically, yeah, so the new government and the Bolshevik government actually saw very big potential in all this new appearing radio technologies and electronic media. And they tried to use it very extensively in all these different ways of the like of seizing and seizing power and keeping this power for themselves, let's say. And yeah, so this the kind of main difference, like main, so there was like a very big kind of difference because early Soviet project was very modernistic project, and it was built on the idea of like destroying all the old world and they create a new one. And actually the oldest development of the technology which is like now kind of omnipresent, so it's like also going through all our lives and we are really dependent on all the different types of media and but in the Soviet and Soviet countries, the development of this media was really heavily guided by the government, not by the market. So it was, and then there is first concept we will talk about. It's weaponization. So it's a creation of the, and then basically support and development only of the technologies which can be used as a weapon as in this kind of task of world revolution and creation of the new world. And then this new world actually things like privacy or like private life were considered as something that like as obsolete. So it's a new communal world with ideal of communism. And one of the uh, artists also who already captured this idea of the how this technology can kind of transform this world and create new kind of absolutely dystopian societies was Evgeny Zamyatin. He was engineer during the Russian Empire, and then he spent some time in England. So he saw this like more developments and results of the technological revolution and the newest kind of technologies and what they are capable of. And then he also like saw what the Bolsheviks regime tried to establish in Russia as the and other surrounding countries at this kind of new world, also using the electricity and media. And he described all these kind of ideas in the book, which is like one of the first dystopias called We, which was written in 1920 during the Civil War. So it's like the Soviet government was still not established in all in all country. But then this vector of development was quite clear also, so that we can see from his book. And there is this citation. So the book was banned, totally banned in the Soviet Union. It was published several times abroad, but in Soviet Union it was published only 1988, like almost 70 years after it was written. And then, but in this book, he actually described the society which lives in the completely kind of so in glass buildings, completely in the eye, like in the sight of each other, controlling each other, and also this kind of secret police force who always kind of survey people, listen them by means of special technology. So television was not the thing yet. but he already predicted this kind of eavesdropping devices as a special kind of membranes, which were placed all around the city and listening what people are saying, and also all this kind of social engineering methods like special agents infiltrating all the layers of society to kind of listen and control people. And then so this is a great book, so I'm really recommend it to read it as well. And then so what was important, that basically most of these technologies and the ideas that he described in this book in 1920, they were not implemented yet, but they will be. And one of the persons who actually played a quite a big role in this kind of also the birth of this surveillance systems and the systems of the total control, at least in the partially in this kind of technomythology side, was Leon Termin, who is actually much more known as a pioneer of electronic music and creator of the Termin Vox. It's a first purely electronic instrument and musical instruments which you play without touching it, and he developed it like during the after the revolution, during the civil war, when he was working in the physical institute, but already after he was working in this radio station. And actually the Soviet government, like in Lenin, was one of the persons who actually saw like very big potential in this instrument right away, because it's already something that has this kind of double purpose and can be used also as a part of the surveillance and military system and alarm systems, but also as a propaganda tool for this kind of really superiority of the new Soviet regime and Soviet government and the communist ideas. And also for the propaganda of electrification, so as part of the idea that Soviet power and electricity will create the communism in the Soviet Union. And Termin himself, actually, yes, he was very talented engineer and musician. He built the system first for the measurement, like physical measurement of the gases of so it was basically scientific tool. But then he like come up with the design which you can use as a musical instrument, but also because it's like contactless system which makes sounds every time somebody approach to it. It was immediately also seized by the Bolsheviks as a like early alarm system, and it was already installed in 1990 as a alarm system is in Kremlin, just to kind of be sure that nobody will so that nothing threatened this new government in Moscow. And also the story of Termin is like very long, and we'll get back to him several times here. But then, yeah, so this he was living also in States for several years, and then he patented his system also as alarm system. But it's also very kind of yeah, so the thing that basically for the Soviet government, the main kind of value of this system was this alarm system, but in States he was able to already develop other musical and audiovisual devices which he couldn't develop in Soviet times, in the Soviet Union at the time. And Other very important invention of termin actually is the very first CCTV system. So like the very first closed circuit television system was built by him. And in this sense, he is often considered as the father of this surveillance systems, grandfather, let's say, because this system was built like in 1926 and was still mechanical, but then it was based also on his own ideas of light music, which was also a big deal at the time. So he was creating this kind of early projection systems which can be used by live musicians to play not only the sounds, but also some kind of visual materials. But then this technological development were also seized by a new government, and he was kind of assigned to develop the new television system, which was actually already fully functional, and it was installed in Kremlin and then allowed people inside to observe like who is coming inside, who is outside. And then the military department was also very interested in the system, and they ordered to create a lot of this. So basically, the initial idea was to use it as a border control systems all around the country as part of this creation of the like Iron Curtain and kind of like fortification of the borders of the new Soviet country. The data is classified, so we don't know if this idea was actually implemented, like using the system in the on actual borders, but then probably not, because the economical situation in the country was quite bad. Like the civil war destroyed a lot of developments of Russian Empire, and the new developments were not fully. So the connections between the other countries also were disrupted, and then it took some time to establish the new factories and new kind of production facilities that were capable to reproduce things like that. And but yeah, so this is also one of the very important thing, that a lot of developments in Soviet Union were not fully implemented just because of this economy reasons and the plan economy. But then most of them were implemented actually by people from abroad, because Soviet regime used this nationalized and kind of confiscated property of the old elites to buy like whole factories abroad, and a lot of English and German engineers were building actually full factories to implement these ideas, like for the creation of new world by means of total propaganda and abandoning of this old ideas of the like old world of individuals to the world of a community, which is kind of a bit repeats of this predictions by Zamyatin. And Shukhov, other person who also was working at the time at the Tsarskoselskoye radio station, he was one of the grandfathers of Soviet propaganda systems, like radio systems. And this idea of total propaganda, yes, so like for Lenin, every piece of art, every piece of media, every text, every movie, every visual kind of thing which like had the right to be produced in this new world of Soviet regime was also has to be has to have this property of the has to have this propagandist property of the like promoting this superiority of the new government and also helping them to keep the power. And radio, which was really only like appearing at the time, was immediately also seen as a very important tool um, for this task. And Shukhov was one of the engineers who, and at the time there was like really a lot of discussion between these two different systems, like wireless radio transmitters, which required like also quite complex equipment, not only for the transmission of the radio waves, but also for receiving the radio waves. So like to build this early radio receivers, you need there was a need of the mass production of the this first like vacuum tubes, electronics, and something that this new Soviet government couldn't achieve yet. But Shorin was kind of promoting this idea of wireless radio, and he was actually really thinking that this like wireless people can really like when you can choose with wireless radio, basically you can catch the radio waves from all over the world and kind of get much more different information. And he managed to get to push this idea of the new like more open systems of the wireless radio communications in the beginning of 20s. And the one of the first kind of achievements by in this area was Shukhov Tower in Moscow. It still exists, and Moscow Radio Telegraph Center or Shabolovka Telecenter. So this tower was used first for the radio transmission, then for television. But the second idea was is using the wired radio, which was like much more much easier to implement, and in a way because you need just one kind of very strong amplifier, and then you can use a lot of different simple radio receivers connected to the wired network, which basically is just the speakers, loudspeakers, and then you can play these loudspeakers everywhere. And this idea, like in 20s, there were like still some competition between these two approaches. But then during Stalin times, the second one was so the radio technology, the radio network, wireless radio network was shifted to the television, which was much less likely to produce so you need very special equipment for television, and it's much more specialized and much more limited than just the radio receivers. But then for the radio and for sound communication, the wired networks were kind of omnipresent, or every home, every and also after the World War II, every public space, they has to be equipped with this special wired network where you can just plug your device, like a loudspeaker, and hear just one official source of information. So the government have total control on what kind of information people could receive through these networks. And Shorin also was very involved in the development of early sound films, also used by Russian propaganda, and there are many really interesting artists who were involved also in the creation of the propaganda movies. For example, Dziga Vertov, who is one of the pioneers of documentary sound cinema, but then he was also producing a lot of uh, cinema newspapers that praised the new Soviet regime, and that allowed him to work on something that he could that he on something that was also important for him. But like in the 20s, also these ideas of revolution were quite so a lot of people accepted them, and they were still quite alive. But the interesting thing behind all this technology and the differences between what was happening at the same time in the West, it's actually the that the so the government was guiding every development, and like all the resources were controlled by the government, so they could really force developments in very specific directions. And then the economy was like very unstable and quite so and not control and not open, let's say. So it's like very isolated, and then it was actually forcing a very specific technological solutions, which were also not implemented anywhere in the West. For example, Shorinophone is one of the also developments of Shorin, which is also kind of sound film, but it's like one of the first compact sound recorders, and it was also produced for the special police for eavesdropping and the recording. And it was used. It was using also the celluloid films, but not as optical. So yeah, the first systems were of sound recording were optical, when you just use the film and optical process to record the sound on the film itself. I will talk about it a bit later. But the Shorinophones using the mechanical recording. It was just a needle which like which was embossing the audio information on the plastic of the film, and then it would be like really compact device which used by also reporters, journalists, and special police. But yeah, so it's like in the very early 30s. So we can also kind of imagine its role also in Stalin's Stalinist terror policy. But yeah, so optical sound film also was something that the Shorin name, like the works of Shorin is really kind of pushed forward. And there were a lot of artists who were working in this areas, but this is kind of example of the technology which was not seen as effective by the Soviet government, and it was never kind of fully developed. And this yeah, so basically this is a very interesting example of this kind of connection between audio audio and visual media, which actually originally was not very separated from each other. So like every sound film, it's something that you can see by naked eye through the in the physical film, but also something that can be played as an audible sound. And then there were a lot of different developments which like in this musical world, by people like Arsenij Avramov, Boris Shershenkov, Evgeny Sholpo, who developed a lot of techniques which we know nowadays as like wavetable synthesis, spectral synthesis, and different type of like sonic sound synthesis technique, which were basically used mostly also in propaganda movies, but then in the early 30s it was really something that was not really so the government never supported this research, and then it was eventually it was just kind of fading away, and a lot of these people actually were persecuted also during the Stalin times. And this is one of the first projects where I started to work with this concept of analog synesthesia. You can see to the right is a varieton system, which was based on this kind of media archaeological research of the variophone, which was early wavetable synthesizer built by Evgeny Sholpo. And there is a very interesting cross connection point where the sounds became visuals and visuals became sounds, which is something that usually by overseen. So it's not something that is used in kind of media technologies, but it's opens like a very broad field for artistic reinterpretation. And the analog synesthesia, it's something that like us in physics, like physiological synesthesia, is some kind of like processes or like connections which can bridge these different ways of kind of perceiving the media as visual or audio. And in this field, actually, there are a lot of things happening which usually can be overseen by researchers or engineers or scholars who is working with this new media contexts. And yeah, another examples also of my own projects, but I will not talk about this a lot. Terraforming, it's a project based on the research of also this early and not early of the television bands, like analog television bands, which were already kind of replaced by digital communication, by like digital standards at the time. But then all this kind of ranges and the frequencies where all this kind of transmissions took place during the 70 years of Soviet regime, and then 20 years of new governments in Russia. They were kind of free after these years, and then they also opened this kind of field for the creation using this old equipment which was developed for kind of serving this Soviet propaganda machine. And yeah, so the 30s and then 40s, Second World War changed everything. Like the new, after death of Lenin and after Stalin seized power, the policy, all these policies behind the media and surveillance systems, telephony, radio, everything was also the control of all the system was kind of handled to political police, NKVD, so the or KGB, so it's like the Committee of Governmental Security, which is actually now revived as FSB, and then the new like the current Russian authorities are mostly kind of rooted in this very specific ideologies and psychologies from this community, let's say. But then, so the second concept which appear at this time after the weaponization of every media. So basically, the new the generation of the engineers and artists who like survived the war, the civil war and revolution, and the early 20s and 30s and Stalin's terror, they were like included already in the new machine, which only purpose was just to kind of for this cult of personality, cult of Stalin, and this like new ideas of Soviet empire and expansion all over the world, not through the world revolution as it was seen by Lenin, but through the World War. And so in this particular worldview, the Soviet Union was a country which was already at war like with all other world, and then every means like the every technological development and every like scientific or artistic development has to be used as a tool in this war, and a lot of scientists and engineers were like seized, like falsely accused and taken to the gulag or like prisons to work on different projects as prisoners. So so it's basically a slave labor, but then it was still kind of better than any other option in the Gulag system. And this approach was actually quite like described by Solzhenitsyn in the book In the First Circle. It's another book I will recommend you today. It's also, it was written after the Stalin death and in the middle 50s, but also was banned and published in Russia in the 1990s in Soviet Union. And then, so what in this book, Solzhenitsyn describes one of the special prisons where their engineers allowed to work on their own projects for the government. And they actually were working in the it's still kind of fictional book, so but then it also captures this kind of ideas and contexts around this topic. And he described the scientists who are working on the nuclear weapons, and then actually not just like choosing this comfort where you can just be in the, so you are still kind of imprisoned, you are not free, you have to work, but you still have roof, you can like bed, food, and something that most of the prisoners in Soviet Gulag system didn't have. And that was also described as this approach that new. So in Solzhenitsyn wrote the all the people who was working with in the field of humanities, philosophy, sociology, everything which was not kind of before Bolshevik times, they were all eliminated or just sent out from the country, and then everything in the humanities was affected by this new like Soviet ideologies. But this is something that not really was not so enforced in the scientific community, but because scientists were somebody who like the Soviet government also needed, and they were allowed to work on their own things, and be a bit more free than the rest of the country. But then, instead, and what Solzhenitsyn envisioned is like one of the persons in the book, he says these words. So they like, if they are doing so great that it's like the age of technological advancements. So all the scientists are like the kind of the smartest people are just enforced to work on something that is completely kind of meaningless on this on the eavesdropping systems, weapons, rockets, kind of contributing to real to the society. And then they don't have any control or on their own work. So they only kind of so they kind of can not responsible for their own work anymore. And all the scientists, they kind of have this choice: or you are like working for the government, but then you all that you do will be used as a weapon and your work will be exploited, or you are going to like prison system and die there. And it actually happened quite a lot. Yeah, so the Solzhenitsyn described the Soviet nuclear development system, and so that's the Gulag in the sense was the systems which were designed also like to dispose of all these people who haven't had the place in the new world. For example, the place that I used to live, Magadan, the Kalama region, it still has some kind of places like former labor camps. They are abandoned, but there were sites where they were digging. The prisoners were digging like some uranium and other radioactive elements just by bare hands. So it was also something that were contributed. So they first to do it also for this early Soviet nuclear development, but also the site was essentially used to just dispose of people, because if you dig radioactive elements with bare hands, you will not live a long time. And so I'm already talking quite a lot. So let's move a bit further. So all the scientists and engineers had this choice. Or are you focusing, like you're going to this internal migration, you're focusing on your own work and doing something that you are interested in, or you try to seize to get the responsibilities for your work, and then try to kind of use your authority as a scientist to do something with it, and to control, to get back to control on your own work back. And these two approaches actually, so there are two figures also. So Shorin died in 1941, so he was not already kind of part of the system, but Leon Theremin survived. Also survived Gulag and survived all this. So he was living in this in imprisoned, and was working for Soviet political police for many years, developing using his own like musical and sound, audio and audiovisual technologies that he created also mostly for the musical purposes. He was kind of repurposing them for special police as a eavesdropping system. For example, this is very kind of famous example. It's the Thing, so the special eavesdropping system which was installed in the American embassy in Moscow, and then he also was developed the Buran system, which was like one of the first optical microphone systems for eavesdropping, which used infrared light to as a signal source. So basically, it's heavily, so it's still very secret development. So all the documents about it are like still not declassified, but the basically it also used infrared light, the same light which is then were used as a part of this surveillance system with analog cameras. Sensors of these cameras are sensitive to this very specific wavelengths, which is not visible for human eye, which allows to use this infrared light for the secret surveillance. And this is something that is also widespreadly used in any kind of video systems. And then that was also kind of initial point for the infra project, where these invisible lights became visible through the analog camera sensor and audible through this early wired radio systems used to control the information flow in the Soviet Union. But second approach, which is so something that I'm working with also for quite some time, but since 2022 it became much more. So it was always important, but it was since 2022 with this new paradigm of total war, like the new of the of the current Russian regime with all other world. And like extensive usage of the threats like by nuclear weapons. It's something that actually is also really very important. And one of the figures in this field is Andrei Sakharov, who was one of the developers of the first Soviet hydrogen bomb. But he actually, at the time he was working in the bomb, it was like the beginning of 50s, and he was also kind of really following the propaganda narratives and developing these superior weapons for the new government, for the Stalin's government to defend itself and defend this kind of new acquirements after the World War II. New acquired territories. And then but then like over the time he actually kind of saw the flaws in his worldview and moved to this to human rights activism and political activism, and used his position as the leading scientist in the field to enforce this kind of new vision of responsibility of the people, which is like who has to get back control over the government and how the government uses the developments of the new science and technology. And what I was researching the field a bit, and then what I found interesting that a lot of the footage, all this kind of first bomb tests, they were like highly classified and then filmed like for only very few people in the government. But then starting like several years ago, from 2020, during the pandemic, 2021, this like highly classified videos starting to appear in the YouTube, so just in the public domain, and sometimes posted like by anonymous accounts with like 13 subscribers, so it's not clear where these people could get this kind of materials. So here like the slide of the one of the Soviet hydrogen bomb documentaries, which starts with a slide like top secret. And this footage actually is also something that used quite a lot by in this narrative, so this total war of the Russian government with all other worlds, that because the nuclear weapons, it's something that it's one of the very few things Soviet government was very proficient of, and the Russia is still one of the biggest kind of storage of all this type of weapons. And then it's actually used quite a lot also in contemporary propaganda, and I was kind of also using this found footage as a part of audiovisual performances in the infrahuman project and performances and installations, like connecting back these ideas of Sakharov of seizing the like the right to decide how this type of technology can be used, not by like very few people who actually adopt who seize the power and just use this all this technology to get more power and to stay in power like as long as possible. And but yeah, not only for that. And there is another project called Experiment on the Test Site, number 1/6, which is also dedicated to these ideas. But yeah, so we are almost out of time, so I'll try to get some time for the questions. So yeah, so the last thing that I wanted to talk about is technomythologies, because yeah, so the interesting thing behind all the Soviet technology, which we can find still quite a lot in the second-hand market, it's something that sometimes was never used, or like something that used in the kind of wrong ways. And there are a lot of stories like urban legends and anecdotes around the different types of technologies, which actually also shows how people perceived it. Like, for example, there is all these wired radio systems. They were so omnipresent that and a lot of people use them also as alarm clocks, because every day, like at 6 a.m., you hear the hymn of the Soviet country, and then you can get up with the hymn. But then, like during the nighttime, when there were no translation, the system actually allowed to use this radio receivers as the microphones, because basically every speaker is something that is that you can connect to the amplifier, and then with enough amplification, the vibration of the speaker from the air you can hear as a voice. And so and then all this kind of underground culture, kitchen talk, and so every society was like really, and still is really, isolated from the government and from the this underground kind of social developments were really controlled by the government. But another ideas, actually, it was that like a lot of this like very big difference between what you can see and read in the media and what you can see and read and what you can see and perceive like in the world around you. And it was this kind of thing was described by Pelevin in the book Amon Ra, also third book I will recommend today, where he actually enforces these ideas like of the decorative role of the technology in the Soviet regime. So for example, he implies that like the first, so the how other countries knew that Soviet Union had the nuclear weapons. They had so they recorded the seismic activity, a very specific seismic footprint. But then in his book, he implied that basically it was like just to just to get this specific footprint. It was not a nuclear weapon, but then it was just 2 million political prisoners who were forced to jump together and like by Stalin in the Gulag system, and then you can get the same footprint, and other countries will think that you have a nuclear weapons, for example. Which is like a lot of different contexts around this technomythologies, and then there is this piece which is the name of the talk. Eyes have ears, which was kind of the connection between these ideas of the eavesdropping, the infrared radiation, and machine vision and machine hearing in one kind of site-specific sound installation where you can hear and the movements and the voices of the people transmitted in the same kind of frequencies and the same media of this kind of wired omnipresent radio communication system. And so the last thing, how is it working now? So basically all this kind of examples I was speaking today were really on the side of ideology. So a lot of things were never implemented fully, only as a kind of this legend and the myth around it. That sometimes is already enough, because you will not talk about something important if you think that somebody else is listening. And then during the latest years, like with the development of digital media and the more or less kind of free 2 decades or like 1 decade of free internet, so we are now all living in this very open, let's say, informational world, like with the social media, with the internet, with the forums, and then so in a way, it's like really resembles a bit Zamyatin's dystopia, but then so it's something that people kind of share voluntarily, let's say, because these are just the platforms to speak about something that it's important for you, and it's also this policies is something that Russian government is using quite a lot nowadays. So these old methods, the people from KGB now basically is people who decide the policies of the new Russian government. Not new. These people are already in the government for 30 years, but since 2022, it's a new approach to it's this kind of conservative revolution and the total mobilization of media and total censorship. So there is a total control since 2015 on all the digital media and everything that people put online, but also since 2022, most of the social media, for example, Meta, is considered as extremist organization, and every interaction of people in the social media is potentially criminalized. So we already but also the new media is used to widespread this information, which makes this kind of old technologies of terror much more efficient, because you don't need, as in 1937, to like put 1,000 people in jail. You can just put one person based on the eavesdropped phone call. You put him in jail, and then every kind of independent media is spreading this information and make other people fear. And Yeah, so I was working on one project about this called voice deprivation, because like a lot of this, there is also a lot of concerns with the new AI development. And then also the legal system in Russia is designed the way that all the laws have like backwards words. So they are, so you can, there are already more than 3,000 political prisoners, a lot of them actually just like in jail for the comments in social media from like 10 years ago, and which was not criminal at the time, but now it is. And then it's also something that really helps to implement these ideas and developments which were kind of designed in the times of this kind of technological deficiency, but now they also backed up with the international market and with a lot of companies who can provide this equipment. For example, like there is a system which every internet provider and telecommunication provider is forced to install, and then it uses, like for example, Israeli Celebrate technologies to for this targeted surveillance systems, and then all the telecommunication operators are required to store the information. So people in this kind of market economy now, people themselves pay for pay to telecommunication operators for like they pay to the government for the surveillance on them, which is very twisted thing. And the voice deprivation, yeah. So
sorry, Boris, I might need
yes,
to.
the last sentence. Yeah, sorry, it was I was a bit. Yeah, so last sentence, basically the voice deprivation is a project which is also, so there are a lot of concerns with the use of AI, and there is a audio piece which will be played in the Austrian radio Tri in the 5th of June, based on this AI developments and field recordings from anti-war projects, but protests in Russia. So if you, yeah, it should be available online. So if you're interested, please listen. And sorry, I was late. So too many topics. I was a bit carried away with the timing. But yeah, so we don't have any time for questions, but please, so if you're interested, please contact me through the emails or social media. And so if you have any ideas, comments, questions, yeah, so I'm looking forward. Sorry for being late.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was amazing to hear you. And you indeed covered a lot of topics. We're gonna give a round of applause. And yes, thank you, Boris, and I hope to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your attention. Yeah, and, unfortunately I can't see you, but anyway, so the organizer have my email, and thank you very much for invitation. So hopefully next time I could be in the conference in person, because I think it's very important initiative. In this, yeah, always very important initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice conference days.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Have a nice day.